Well, my thoughts on having multiple object-based oriented surround formats is based on previous experience. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure how it's going to unfold at the format level, at the level of the disc and the media itself. If they can pack all that stuff in there, then everybody wins, right? I mean, if they can put Dolby DTS, and if Auro ends up being a player, doesn't that remain to be seen actually in North America, if it's even going to be any kind of a significant player, then everybody wins. But if it's a DVD audio disc or a Blu-ray disc, then obviously everybody sort of gets hurt, I think. And I think if we can pack them all into one disc, that's better. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. If they're separate, it's going to be DVD audio and Blu-ray all over again, and it's going to confuse the customers. It's going to separate the market. I was going to use the word bifurcate, but I didn't. That's a fancy word. But it is confusing to the consumer if they're separate. If they're both on the same disc, then you choose the format, and that's been the case with a lot of DTS and Dolby discs. But I don't know if there's room on the modern disc that will hold these formats moving forward. The new what's the Blu-ray disc? I mean the 4K disc called?
UHD.
UHD disc.
Yeah.
Is there room on that disc for both soundtracks?
Well, it seems like the movie house actually, whoever the developer is, chooses whether it be Atmos or DTSX or if it's developed in Auro. So
I see.
most of the time that's already defined on the disc. So or the production house.
Gotcha.
Of the media.
There are Blu-rays though that have both, right? The DTS soundtrack and a Dolby soundtrack. I mean, there's always, right?
Not DTSX and Atmos.
No, not X.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
talking about the
oh,
old school
right,
DTS
yes.
and
Yeah,
Dolby,
yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
You have your option of playing back which one you want. That's not going to happen, you don't think, with object-oriented?
Well, I think that it's up to basically the processor, whether or not it can handle the DTSX or Dolby Atmos. Because really, what it comes down to is when a customer puts in a disc and they hit play, they want to have that experience.
Well, that's a whole other can of worms, and I would think that the processor company that can't do both is really going to be behind the eight ball at that point. That really separates your customer base. Speaking for Anthem, we're DTS ready. It'll be a firmware upgrade.
Yeah,
when it
right.
comes out.
We are
I think
too.
we all are,
Yeah,
right?
uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
that's the processor's not. I don't think going to be the choke point on this. It's going to be going to Best Buy or Amazon and going, do I buy that one or do I buy that one? And that's I think really going to stall things.
Right.
If that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. It's because what a customer wants to do is just be able to have that experience that their custom installer has actually developed for them in their home. And that's up to us as manufacturers to make sure that we have the flexibility to handle whatever format comes. But if it's up to the customer, they probably might be frustrated.
And at the player level, it's transparent, right? At the Blu-ray player level, it's transparent. They just send the bit stream to the processor, and it does the work.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not that big of a deal. I don't care which one I buy; they'll both play, and over time, I'll determine if I like one better than the other.
Well, I think part of what Brandon is saying is that the studios themselves, they don't want to mix it 3 different times. So they're going to choose
Right.
to be either in the DTS
Right.
camp or the Dolby camp
Right.
or the Auro 3D camp. From my perspective, at least in the U.S. market, if I'm a dealer, it would be very tough for me in good conscience to sell a customer on an Auro 3D system because it's a completely different layout from Atmos and DTSX. So, which may be a fine format, may sound fantastic and may do a lot of great things, but due to the lack of content, at least in the North American market, once you've put the customer in that type of a system, they're not going to be able to play Dolby Atmos and DTSX natively. So you're putting them down a pathway that doesn't give them a lot of flexibility. At least with DTSX and Dolby Atmos, it's the same layout, or can be the same layout.
Speaker-wise.
Speaker-wise, correct, yeah.
Okay.
So R3D is completely
Yeah,
different, and so
yeah.
once you've set the room up, wired the room that way, set up a dedicated theater, whatever it is, place those speakers in those locations, you're kind of stuck with R3D. And that would be, it just seems like it would be a difficult sell to a customer here. Now in Europe, that's a lot different. There are more titles. There's a little more, of a push for R3D. But the major Hollywood studios, the major studios that we, watch and listen to in the U.S. market seem to be choosing DTS or Dolby. And right now, the majority being Dolby, but of course, DTS is very new to it.
So there's a big rush to remaster Ingmar Bergman films in Auro 3, is that what I'm hearing? I think, for me, it's a little too early to tell. Of the three, take one away
Yeah.
and leave the two predominant North American players. And I think it's a little too early to tell from a
Right.
dealer perspective which they root for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, from a dealer perspective.
And for the customer, I think they just want to feel like they're getting a system that's going to be not just ready for today, but they don't want to feel like they've bought all this
Exactly.
equipment
Yep.
and done all this, and then 2 years down the road, one of them is dead or whatever,
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
Same with any technology we've, 3D or, things that we've done over the years as electronics manufacturers that we kind of get customers and dealers excited about, and then maybe abandon or.
And I know firsthand, if you tell a customer, even, we're gonna wire this so that no matter, that you'll be able to play either of these two formats. They'll both sound great, you only have to do it once. That in itself may be enough to confuse them and make them go, we're just gonna rebuild the patio, screw it.
Right.
Right.
I mean, choice and confusion and the possibility of losing your future-proof system is enough to scare. We've shot ourselves as an industry in the foot a couple of times before.
Well, it's building in the flexibility to be able to handle both formats. So because ultimately, when they put in a disc, whether that be part of their DVD library from 7 years ago or something that they just got a couple of days ago, they want to be able to harness that new technology that they just spent all that money on.
And not coming from the product management side myself and the development side, it's easy for me to say, well, let's just do both.
Yeah.
Right.
So is it? I mean, I know from our perspective, it's a firmware upgrade.
Yep.
But there had to be some infrastructure on the boards to make that
Yeah.
happen. It adds complexity and cost to the system, but it really isn't that big of a deal, is it, to be able to play both?
No, it all comes down to working directly with DTS and Dolby from a development standpoint.
Right.
Yeah.